All right, here we are again. It's Tuesday, technically now Wednesday, 2 in the morning. I don't know if it's noticeable. I mean, I tried cutting my hair a little bit myself, so hopefully it looks a little bit better. I got out of the shower, so kind of raised in the back, I see. Anyhow, some big updates this week, I suppose. I don't know what topic of this video is going to be per se until I kind of get across it, but I think this week is going to be acceptance because don't know, just gotta accept what comes at you, I guess, at this point, uh let's start off with, I guess, recapping last week. So I will admit, looking back at the video that I did last week, I think it was more so just a vent, total vent. It wasn't even a rant, it was just a vent, because just some work stuff got caught up to me, and then thinking about, just again, at the end of the video, I know I kind of mentioned money, and I'm going to mention money here again, so sorry not sorry again, but that's what this video is going to include. So again, money pretty much top of my mind always, and probably will always be. But I know, like, looking back at it and stuff, honestly, just talking about the work stuff, and then talking about the jobs, and I'll get into that too. Yeah, I feel like it was a big vent, not really talking about the topic of taking risk per se, other than, I guess I kind of started looking at other positions that's outside of where I'm working currently, instead of, applying for internal positions and whatnot. But that was pretty much last week. I kind of want to stick to, like, the second video I did this week, and just, like, kind of talk more about the actual topics that I'm going to title the video, but also talk about some stuff that I think might go on, and probably talk about stuff that's good rather than just thinking of the doom part. So, but anyhow, getting started with this week. First thing I'm going to mention is probably going to be work. Not really stories or anything like that, but about the positions I applied for. So out of the 4 positions I applied for originally, 3 of them have come back and denied me. I know I mentioned one of them last time, but the other 2 that I'll mention here, as soon as I made the video I did last week, that following morning, at exactly, I don't know the exact time, it was like at 9 in the morning, I got an email. And the second position that I got denied was, I believe it started at like 22 an hour. As far as I get these rejection emails or whatever, they're just made by a bot, pretty much. There's no reason or whatever, because obviously it's like I'm not getting pulled up to do an interview or whatever, so I'm getting denied right away. So, but basic bot response or whatever. Well, you won't be moving forward, but you can apply to other positions at so and so. So the usual with that one. And then actually yesterday, well, now technically it might yesterday, but on a Monday I got denied from the third position, which was, I believe it started out at around the same amount that I'm making right now, minus like a couple cents. Maybe I'm getting mixed up with another position, but it was another, bookkeeping position or whatever, yada yada. And same old bot response, you got denied, you won't be moving forward, yada yada. Here's a link to, apply to other positions at our company, even though, I work there. I know what it is because I'm applying internally. So, yeah. Last position that is up, though, is surprisingly the $70,000 a year position that I might have mentioned before, where, again, you're working with these maintenance crews and stuff like that. You're scheduling for maintenance to be done, whether it's HVAC, electrical, carpentry, basic trade type skill stuff. You're just the planner for it. Do I see myself getting it? No. That was a big goof one. I'm just waiting for the denial. If I get it, honestly, I'm gonna be surprised, and I don't know, but I sincerely doubt I'm going to get that position just for the fact that I don't have any experience with any of those trades, let alone any office experience. Because again, if you don't know already, I'm working this dead end job that at a university that I graduated from, and I can't find a position that has anything to do remotely with the degree that I have. So, yeah. However, I will mention before I move the topic or whatever, I have applied to one position that has come out within the recent week, like as soon as like that Monday that it got denied. I was looking at positions again, and there is one position, and I will be very honest, it's a 50-50 shot whether I do or don't get it, because it is related to the thing that I'm currently doing right now. So it's not really a dead-end job, but it's a supervisor role for the dead-end job. However, they want you to have a degree. They want you to have experience with Office, programs, mainly Microsoft, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, all that jazz. That's pretty much like up my alley right there. And as far as like experience that they want, it didn't mention anything like a leader position or whatever, let alone like a supervising, having to deal with employees in general. But it did mention like experience with obviously those office programs and just experience with what I currently do right now. And it just wants you to bare minimum have like a year. I've been at this position for a year, going on 3 months now. And then prior to this position, I was working at part-time, which was basically the same thing, except for, a whole new company or whole other company in general. So, and I was there for like 2 years. So hopefully, again, this is 50-50, because at the same time, since I did apply internally, if any other, like, because we have like the hierarchy goes like us, which we're like just general employees, whatever, then it goes to group leaders, then it goes to supervisors. So a number of group leaders can easily apply to it, and it's not gonna lie, pretty good position. It's a salaried position, and on average, the campus gives 3% raises every year. So it's not really bad. It starts out $50,000, goes up to $53,000 with experience. I'm guessing, the usual. But it's Monday to Friday, and it's first shift, so it's like 7. I believe it's like 7 or 7:30 to 4, 3:34, something like that. But the bad thing is on like on call, 24-hour on call thing or whatever I mentioned. Which obviously, if something happens or whatever and they need you, then you got to go in, and obviously no overtime or whatever is going to be counted because you're salaried or whatever. So there is that. But again, I don't really care, because sad to say, but I don't have a life outside of either being at home or at work, so that's nice. Anyhow, like I said though, kind of up in the air, 50-50. I feel like, yes, I meet the requirements, but however, if this position has been put up for the way that it is, which is internal right now, there's a number of people that's probably wanting to apply to this position because obviously it's salaried and, different whole new shift or whatever, and you get the, I don't know, get those benefits or whatever. I don't know. So that's that though with current looking at positions and stuff, especially where I'm working at now. I guess to kind of move the topic a little bit, I know in the last video I mentioned that the university that I work at, graduated from, yada yada, they have this app where you can look at positions based on like whether you're alumni or student, whatever. I looked at it again, I logged in and everything else, and man, this economy, if I know a thing or two, since that's what my degree's in, it's in a way cooked, because I did not find any positions in like my entire state that was willing to either pay no more than $20. And I'm not really crazy about the money, but obviously if you don't know, I don't have a vehicle, technically. I'm using a parent's vehicle to get to work. And like, maybe I mentioned last time, but I'm not really on the insurance yet. I pay for it. So I'm kind of like, I'm a good driver. I won't lie. But if I got to drive like an hour and a half to work and then an hour and a half back as the closest location for another position that only pays about $18 an hour, it's kind of worthless when I'm making that the same amount right now and my work is like 5 miles away from me. So that's the way I'll put that as far as like positions I've looked at in state. Out of state, I mean, really, I'll get into it with the money situation later, but I just don't have that kind of funds to let alone like move to another state if there are any positions, because be honest, I haven't looked outside of the state that I live in for work. So maybe that's on me. Maybe that's the next thing I'll have to take risk on, but who knows. So that's really all the work related stuff I wanted to talk about this week or whatever, and positions I applied for. I want to wait later to really get into the nitty gritty of like talking about money. So, man, I got to come up with another topic to think about here. But I'll kind of get into the acceptance part, and with these positions being recently denying me, and be very honest, maybe it's the stuff that I'm getting recommended on YouTube now because prior I've mentioned that I've re-downloaded Reddit and I haven't really been on it, too much to look at like people's stories or whatever. I have looked at it as far as like some of the hobbies that I'm trying to get back into, and that's really been about it for Reddit. But like recently with YouTube, I don't know if it's like making these videos is my phone's hearing me and just recommending me things or what, but like I just keep on getting more and more doom stuff, and I just kind of want to sit here today for this video and just kind of try to look at the positives of stuff. So that's why I'm gonna see about making this one about acceptance. And not gonna lie, it sucks that I can't move up and with this degree and stuff. And I know I've mentioned before in a prior video that like I'm working with these I shouldn't say that. I'm working with fellow employees, I guess. That's the only way I can really put it. But I'm working with people that are, twice my age, almost like technically my parents' age, if not, some of them are a little bit older. And, I know I mentioned like it takes time with the whole patience, idea of patience, to actually like move up, and not only move up, but like to know what you want and how to get there a little bit and everything else. And like I've only been out of college for a year. So again, I get that it takes time to get these things rolling and everything else. And I have some good news for later in the video, but I just want to make this known that like you have to accept the position that you're in. Things will get better with time, obviously, and that's where patience comes in. But for the short term, instead of thinking about long term with patience, in the short term it's acceptance, because acceptance is where you just accept where you're at. You have to look at the positives more than you have to look at the negatives, because honestly, if you keep on looking at the negatives, then you're going to stay in the same mindset, and eventually you just kind of give up. And you gotta stick it out with a little bit of hope, because that's what I'm trying to do here with the number of positions that I've been denied from. But yeah, there's another one around the corner that I'll apply for, because what else is there, right? And like if I'm going to stay in the same area, then that kind of sucks, and the same like just ideology of just dooming and just staying where I'm at, and like I don't know, again, with me at least, not saving money and like looking at the negatives all the time, and just like again sitting in front of a TV or staying on your phone constantly and just looking at anything and everything negative, because if you continue to do that, you're just going to stay in the same place. So but for me, with this acceptance that I'm trying to conjure up, I know it's a little bit hard, and I keep on repeating, I know, but you got to look at the positives, and I will look at the positive that, again, I have a roof over my head. I have the ability to drive from, work to home. I don't have to like walk to work, for example. I have good food. I'm able to eat and stuff like that. We're not really struggling per se. So just accepting where you're at is pretty much where I'm trying to get across, I guess. I don't know what else to say. I feel like I've repeated, same topic or same sentence that I've been trying to get across for the past, I guess, 5 minutes now. So, yeah. Maybe this one's going to be a little short. I know we're at 15 right now. So, I guess the only other topic, again, on my mind currently is just about money. So, sad to say, but I guess we'll get into the topic of money. So, some bad news or whatever, I guess with the money stuff is, I didn't get an exact number. I'm going to kind of guesstimate a little bit. But after insurance for this month and I have paid rent for this month, I am at $347.57. It's either 57 cents or 98 cents. I can't remember. Might be 98 cents. So I'll just say $300 though. I do know for sure that I have currently with today, Wednesday, as long as I don't spend anything today, that'll be 8 days until my next paycheck. So I have technically 9 days if, I'm counting today just for example. Well, just in case if I end up spending anything today. But I have 300 and some dollars, some odd dollars, 340 some that I mentioned, yada yada, to last me for 8 days, technically 9. So take that as you will. After paying for rent for the month and paying for car insurance, which are currently the only bills that I have to pay for. So that there. I will be honest. I getting into the positives now because that's really the only thing negative as far as money goes right now. But I am officially at $20,000 in my high yield savings account. I did transfer all $4,000 that was in my savings, my regular savings, over, and yeah, we're sitting at $20,000, and that was my original goal that I set for myself prior to when I graduated a year ago. So congratulations, we're there. And now kind of looking in the void now because honestly I do not know what else to do because, again, trying to look at the positives, but I can't like $20,000 does not go far, not gonna lie. Like, I mean, if I put every single dollar that I got out of that $20,000 into, like, say for example, $100,000 home, which, like, I have not seen any houses for sale for $100,000 in my area, because I believe this smallest house that I've seen available has like started at like $200,000, if not more. So yeah, but like I'm not like really interested in getting a mortgage, let alone any type of loans to do that right now. So, do I see myself ever buying a house just outright with the money that I save? Like, probably not gonna lie. This isn't Great Depression or the Roaring 20s or whatever, when houses probably were affordable like that. I guess, I don't know, out of pocket instead of relying on a bank to rely on a mortgage or a loan. But thinking about what things I could do, not gonna lie, I'm not like, I have thought about getting a vehicle for myself, but if I do, then honestly I'm gonna have to pay for car insurance on the current car that I drive to work on top of the vehicle that if I were to buy one right now. There are some vehicles I've seen that are fairly cheap. Like, I'm not gonna spend all $20,000. Like, I've seen some vehicles for like $5,000, but not gonna lie, they're kind of in the beater with a heater type vehicles, and or they're not like really too reliable outside of they just get you from point A to point B. So I don't know, like, I could do that, but honestly, just thinking of the long term a little bit, like, I'm gonna have to pay for like double the amount of insurance, which is probably gonna be around like $400 a month, which is $400 or an extra $200 that, like, I'm not gonna have to save or whatever. So I don't really see the point of doing that unless like I really do either take the risk or take the initiative to actually start the process of moving out of my parents' house. So yeah. And again, if I mention it with the $200,000 starting home prices, rent in our area is not the best either. Apartments currently, like on the low end, which is like the crappy type stuff where it's like, technically they should be condemned in a way because they have black mold or pest or whatever constantly, is about like $700, which again I could afford with that because I believe with the monthly that I take home, that is like the full 30%, that you're supposed to do for like your rent or whatever housing. But like, why would I pay that amount if like things like that aren't taken care of? So, I'm not gonna really do anything like that. Houses, let alone like, not gonna lie, a little bit of story. I recently saw a 1 bed, 1 bath house that is actually like a 2 minute drive from me. It's like down the road from me. It's not even like a few blocks. And they are wanting to start out rent at like $1,600. Our current rent for a 3 bed, 2 bath trailer is after tax $1,184.98. So that's pretty bad when you gotta have like an extra 400 some dollars for a 1 bed, 1 bath house. And you're probably not gonna own it because there was no mention of like rent to own. So so some ideas of crazy prices that people put on these properties, so crazy stuff. But I guess with that being said, kind of going back on the subtopic of money a little bit, $20,000 in the high yields, woohoo. I think the next goal is just, not gonna lie, just see where I can take it from here, because on average I do save about $1,000 a month. I think technically, because we are in month 6 of 12, it's now June. I believe now, planning for the market ahead for housing, I believe from now until December, the money that I save needs to be exclusively either for a down payment on a home, some amount for rent, or a combination of money for housing for myself if I want to move out, as well as getting my own vehicle. And I believe it's going to be that one, because obviously if I move out, I'm not going to take this vehicle because we only have one car for our household. So I'm going to need to find a way to get my own vehicle, which again, as far as vehicle prices, maybe they rise with the current prices of vehicles, but I believe on average, if I find a secondhand vehicle from someone, say on Facebook Marketplace, or just some of the used cars lots around here that I live at, I believe I can find a vehicle even if I had cash in hand that day for about $5,000. Some sort of reliable vehicle that can get me from point A to point B, possibly point C, which would be like stuff like visiting parents or going to a grocery store, that type of stuff. So hopefully, I think that's the next goal that I will set starting now in June. It's currently June 2nd. No, sorry, take that back. June 3rd now. So from now until the end of December, I believe the money that I save will probably not go into the high yield savings account. I believe it's just going to exclusively sit in my savings, my regular savings. Maybe if, I don't know, like if I get 4 months in, so what would that be? June, July, August, September. So about September area, I might put that $4,000 into the high yields. Maybe it'll grow a little bit more interest, and then I can take that interest plus that $4,000 back into my regular savings account, and then that interest can be seen as tax. But, I'm getting into it a little bit too much if this is boring for you. But just some thought process behind what I'm thinking as far as my next goal. Again, this is like just me thinking in my head and just putting it in video form so that I can remind myself maybe and just kind of set a goal in mind. But that's what I'm kind of thinking as far as the rest of this year. Our lease, I believe we did sign it in March. However, just in case, because again, a whole new year starts, obviously in January, I'm going to just see about putting, signing a lease again for where we live off. I mean, I don't sign it, not gonna lie. It's my parents that sign it, but like, not gonna lie, I probably pay for about like a good quarter of like what we typically spend on a monthly basis. So I don't want to like put them in a bad bind or whatever. And I don't want to speak ill will, but hopefully maybe they take the idea of like starting to save money and or having a plan for themselves, because I would like to have my own independence and move out and everything else. And obviously, it's not gonna lie, maybe it's just me. It's kind of embarrassing living with parents when you have a degree in hand and you're working this dead end job. So I don't know. I mean, there's things that I want to do. To be very honest, maybe it's just gonna be me getting into a whole new topic or whatever. But there are things that I want to do that I've never really experienced, like meeting people, like actually talking to people outside of home, and if you know what part of that means or whatever, like, meeting people, type stuff. So hopefully I can start doing things like that if I were to have my own place, of some sort. So I don't want to like get into it too much because I don't know. I feel embarrassed talking about it. But again, this, whole channel and the videos I'm making are a way for me to try and break out. So get more comfortable talking to people and I guess talking to myself. So that's that. But anyhow, that's the money situations as of right now. I will be honest, before I move on to anything else, I will say in my regular savings, just in case, I do have $500 because I know like you're supposed to, or not really supposed to, but like you should have like an emergency fund of like $1,000. I have like $500. I don't see anything happening that I'm gonna need that $500 in the next 9 days, but just in case, because again, who knows? Maybe that $300 I gotta spend on food or gas or whatever. Because I know, like, not gonna lie, I think about add a quarter of a tank, which I think should get me through the rest of this week. So who knows? Gas prices fluctuate so, you know, constantly that one day is good and one day is bad, right? So the average with gas prices across the nation, I guess. I don't know. I think when I was driving home, it was like 378, something like that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at these numbers too much or something like that. But some thoughts or whatever for there. Other than that, kind of talked about a little bit with work stuff. Recapping here. Talked a little bit about work stuff. Talked about a little bit of acceptance with my situation as of right now. And kind of talked about the money situation like always because, can't think of anything else besides money. So maybe this one's going to be a little short. It looks like we're almost at 30 minutes. But I'm going to try to make these videos a little bit more tame. I know, again, maybe it's some embarrassment from last time, but I just felt like the last video that I made was not even a rant, but more so just a vent because, man, work is starting to get to me. There are things happening currently at work with not necessarily changes, but just with the people that I'm working with and just things that I'm not really involved in and I don't plan to be is, all I'll say. Because I get every work is going to have your own drama or whatever, but like, man, when you don't pay attention to it, somehow you get involved with it. So that's really that there. And I think that's really about it for this week. Hopefully, maybe I'll come up with some better topics to talk about and or maybe I'll do some more stuff in the meantime that, kind of set some newer goals or whatever, whether it be different hobby things or whether it be again, with money or just work in general. Those are my three biggest topics or biggest peeves, I guess, that I'm trying to work on for right now. So hopefully this video was a little bit more tame, and I hope that, maybe I look back at this one and, rewatching it and stuff, and just know that I have to accept where I'm at and just look at the positives for what I have right now. Because again, not gonna lie, I know a lot of people are not even able to save like $10, let alone like $20,000. And honestly, maybe if I hoard the money that I am right now and come up with a better goal as time goes on, which I think the goal that I have set for like what I said prior uh, is a good starting point. Maybe I can do some more or whatever. Maybe I'll start something on a side hustle or whatever, but for the most part, whatever, I think that is about it for this week. So hopefully next week will be a little bit better.